Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
Coming up on the First Take podcast, a huge weekend in the NBA. We'll tell you who wins and who goes home. Plus, will Mayweather be distracted when he enters the ring on Saturday? And should the Texans make Johnny Manziel the first name called in the NFL draft? All that and more coming up on the First Take podcast, which starts right now. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Take. Kerry Champion and Skip Bayless in studio. Stephen A. Smith, San Francisco today. My friend, how are you?
What's going on, y'all? Good morning. How you doing?
You realize you're in my favorite city in the world, you lucky dog, you?
Skip, I got to tell you something. Let me just start off the show right on a couple of issues. I'm sorry for the delay, but it's necessary. Number one, I had maybe the greatest experience of my career coaching the NBA yesterday, because being at that game last night, being a guest of the owners, not just working for SportsCenter, the Golden State Warriors gave me the hospitality.
Here we go.
I don't even know.
Here we go.
I don't even know if I deserved it, but the crowd was hyped. Skip, it may be the best home crowd I've seen in all my years outside of Jordan at Chicago Stadium. That's number one. And number two, I was driving into the studio this morning.
Yeah.
And Skip, you know how you watch San Francisco and you see all of these hills, but I've never seen them. And so it was the first time I turned a corner and the hills are just, I was like, this is beautiful. This is beautiful out here. It really is.
You've been to San Francisco 1,000 times and you've never looked around?
No, I haven't. Skip.
This is the most beautiful city in the world.
I've only been to San Francisco once, and that was coming into the airport, and I went to the stadium for football. I didn't come downtown.
Stephen A., can you be objective today at all? Will you be able to be objective?
Well, I'm always
I think we're about to serve some home cooking for the Warriors.
There you go. I'm just trying to tell y'all. Hey, listen, I'm on three. Look, as much as I've been working, do I look like I'm tired? I'm feeling great. I'm feeling great.
All righty.
Well, you should be great.
Yeah, well, that's what San Francisco will do to you. Coming up on the show today, we have NFL prospect Derek Carr. He's the former Fresno State quarterback. He's going to join us at the desk to talk about his NFL hopes. Plus, the Clippers, we were talking about it, could not close out the series against the Warriors. It goes back to Los Angeles. The Pacers also live to see a Game 7 as well. The breakdown in just a few moments. Stephen A. from San Francisco, and he loves the hills. The hills are beautiful. That's what we found out. But first, on the show, let's talk about what they said. They said he was Mr. Unreliable. But it turns out that headline was a challenge, not really an insult, because Kevin Durant and the Thunder dominated Memphis. In Memphis, Durant had 36 points, 14 of 15 from the free throw line, and 10 rebounds. Kevin Durant on the headline, folks.
We want to bring elimination. That's more motivation for us all. Headlines, I'm not going to give them credit for nothing, no matter where they come from. We're down 3-2. We needed to win this game. That's more motivation than anything.
More motivation than anything. His mother didn't like that tweet at all. Typical Oklahoman on Kevin. Unbelievable. Kevin is reliable. The Oklahoman later apologized for the headline by saying the words were overstated and harsh, whatever the case may be. Stephen A., what impact did that headline have on the game?
Well, I imagine, regardless of what Kevin Durant tries to say, that it had some sort of an impact. Let's be clear. It was unfair. It was something that I pointed to yesterday. I'm not in the business of critiquing or criticizing my contemporaries, whether it be individuals or a particular publication network or whatever the case may be. I don't play that game, but I definitely think it was a bit excessive considering all the greatness of Kevin Durant, all he has brought to the table. You have to remember, up until they lost in the playoffs last year in Memphis when Russell Westbrook went down, this team has moved progressively forward the previous 4 years. First round, second round, conference finals, then the NBA finals. They were going in a forward direction with Kevin Durant being the star that led them that way. So for the local affiliate to then come out and to label him unreliable, I definitely think that was excessive. It was beyond the pale, and it was incredibly undeserving. And I don't have any problem with the tweet that his mother put out because she didn't get incendiary or too inflammatory in any way. She just simply pointed out that she thought it was something that was incredibly unfair to her son, and I don't have a problem with that. And Kevin Durant, I thought, handled it like a pro. He didn't have much to say. He didn't overreact. But then he came out there in the first quarter, and he said, who's unreliable? He dropped 14 points in the first quarter. He put the Memphis Grizzlies on their heels for one of the rare times in this series. And as a result, he propelled his team to a must-win in Game 6 in Memphis, forcing a Game 7 this weekend in Oklahoma City. Just reminding us of the superstar we know he is and is capable of being. That doesn't mean he's been at this series, because we know that he hasn't by and large, because Tony Allen has been a pest. But he's still a superstar. He's still the second greatest player in the world, as far as I'm concerned, and he reminded all of us of that last night, and he deserves kudos for that, for standing up and just putting the world on notice that he's still here and making the local paper look a bit foolish on this particular morning. But he still has a game to go. Still has a game to go.
Before I get to your remarks about how the Oklahoman was out of bounds and unfair, allow me to say I thought that headline was the greatest thing that could have happened to Kevin Durant and his team yesterday at that moment. And I remind you, I'm not going to say you called him out yesterday, but you put him on some notice. This was a big deal to him last night, and it was a big deal because by his standards, he hasn't been a big deal against Memphis in this series, nor was he in the series last year, albeit without Russell Westbrook. Now, back to what happened last night. That headline relit Kevin Durant's fire. It relit his team's fire. That team thundered out of the gate last night. That game, to me, was basically over in about 6 or 8 minutes because Kevin Durant said no. Even in the grindhouse, he did exactly what I asked him to do yesterday. If you're not going to post up, at least shoot the ball in the paint. And Stephen A., He made 5 out of 8 shots in the first quarter in the paint. He took no threes in the first quarter after he'd gone 3 crazy in the previous series. He did take threes thereafter, and he missed all 6 of them, but we'll leave that be for right now. But in the first quarter, as you well know, he scores 14 points, makes 6 out of 10 total shots, 1 little mid-range jumper outside the paint. Exactly what he should have done, because you know that I've always said on this show, Kevin Durant is at his best when he gets a technical foul that he thinks he did not deserve. He had the 3rd most techs in the league this past regular season. And every time he got one, he took it out on the opposition and on the scoreboard. And this to him, to Kevin, from his quote-unquote hometown paper, was like 100 technical fouls. That's how he reacted last night. Now, back to your premise and everybody's premise. I am from Oklahoma City. I will tell you, not to remind you because I've never told you this, but I worked for the Oklahoman for a summer when I was in college. I grew up reading that paper. It was my Bible as a kid. I did not think that headline was out of bounds. I thought it was strong, but it was honest, and I thought it was barely fair. Barely fair. I did not think that the Oklahoma needed to apologize for it and go to the lengths of publicly asking Durant and his family for forgiveness, because let's be honest about it. The numbers are the numbers. The facts are the facts. In 8 of the last 9 playoff games against the Memphis Grizzlies, this year and last year, Kevin Durant has been shockingly unreliable. And again, the sports editor's message to his readers and the fans was that we were aiming this more at Kevin's performance against Memphis, not in the big picture, not in the MVP season that he just had, just against Memphis. Do I have to dredge up the numbers from last year, albeit without Russell, his running mate, his best buddy? Late and close in those 4 straight losses to Memphis last year, Kevin Durant shot 3 for 17. That's shockingly unreliable. And then this year, games 3, 4, 5. By his standards, I'm sorry, 2, 3, 4, and 5. By his standards, they were awful. By his MVP standards, you know it and I know it. It got so bad after Game 4, when Reggie Jackson saved the day, that in Game 5, in the last 7 minutes of the game, his coach turned him into a decoy. A decoy. And they're calling Reggie Jackson's number down the stretch. And Kevin acknowledged publicly, Tony Allen is in my head. Okay? Again, is it almost a cheap shot to say Mr. Unreliable? Not against the Memphis Grizzlies. And you said yesterday, this is huge for Kevin's legacy. And it was. And I wasn't surprised. I told you yesterday, I thought he would come out swinging, man. And did he ever? He showed you his guts and his character. It was great to watch because he just put the game away immediately. Memphis isn't close to as good as Oklahoma City. It's close to being a travesty that this series is going to go 7 games. It shouldn't have. After you saw the first half of Game 1, that's what should have kept happening. Kevin fell into a slump or let Tony get in his head. Russell Westbrook went completely out of control. They played basketball last night, and Kevin Durant, especially in the first quarter, did what he can do against anybody shorter who defends him. Just shoot the ball over him in the paint. Period. End of story.
Skip, I know we're debating, and I'm not trying to, believe it or not, though, I'm not trying to debate you on this particular issue because I don't want to parse words too much, but I think it's necessary in this particular instance. I understand if it were coming from you, I would accept it, and I think the world would accept it easier simply because you would have specified that you're talking about Memphis. When you have a headline at a local newspaper that says Mr. Unreliable, it wasn't clear that they were talking about Memphis, which is why the sports editor, one would surmise, felt the need to come out and apologize. This is a career 27-point-per-game scorer, a 4-time league scoring champion, again until last year, who has taken you progressively forward for the previous 4 years of his career. This is not a scrub. This is not somebody who has come up short. This is somebody who was in the finals, and although you and I may have called him out for moments where he disappeared, just like James Harden disappeared, the dude averaged 30 on better than 50% shooting in the NBA Finals. So I'm simply saying to you that when you look at it, we have to understand and qualify that we're measuring him against the standards his greatness has established. Not like he's some dude that just comes up small all the time, that he's unreliable because you can't count on him when it really counts. You could count him in the playoffs the previous 4 years prior to last year when Russell Westbrook went down. It's Skip Bayless that highlights and specifies once Russell Westbrook went down against Memphis, you did this. And as a result, you have to come back this year and do this because this is what this team is doing for you. That's entirely different than a local newspaper headlining an article or a sports section labeling unquestionably the second greatest player in the world unreliable and putting it out there on a vague level to be embraced and absorbed by a nation, if not a world, of basketball lovers. You can't do that to Kevin Durant. You can't do that.
And just for the record, for those who have not heard this or don't understand, the article was a column written by the columnist, Barry Trammell of the Oklahoman, and I read it, and it did not say or indicate Mr. Reliable. The headline was written by a veteran headline writer on the desk there. So it was his view of Barry's column,
Well, that explanation is fine, but it needs to go a bit deeper. Just for the viewers out there, they need to understand that writers are primarily responsible for the words that take place under their byline. Over their byline, we have nothing to do with that. You know this, Skip. I know it. You have copy editors in an effort to tease and what have you.
You know how many mornings in my life I woke up and opened my paper and saw the headline over my column and thought, oh, my God, I'm going to have a long day.
Hey, Skip, quick aside. One time I wrote an article on Temple's basketball team, And I literally had to go down to North Broad Street in Philadelphia and sit down with the legendary coach John Chaney to explain to him that I have absolutely nothing to do with the headlines, because he was so ticked off at the headlines that he could barely read the article because he was so ticked off. And I had to go down the street and sit in his office for an hour and explain to him how the writers have nothing to do with the headlines. That's how it goes.
Stephen A., it does go that way, my dear. Let me ask you this before we get out of here quickly. Who wins Game 7, Thunder, Memphis?
Listen, I picked OKC to win this series, and I'm going to stick with that now that they covered themselves in Game 6. I didn't know whether they were going to be able to pull it out on the road in Memphis last night, but I didn't count them out the way I counted Indiana out, to be quite honest with you. But OKC handled their business. They're on their home court, and I'm going to put it to you this way. They better not lose Game 7 on their home floor. They better not lose it.
I hate to be so harsh here, but this series is over, because it looks to me like Mike Conley Jr. is over for this series. I know you're at the other game, Stephen A., but he pulled or tore or hurt his hamstring, and he hobbled off the floor, and it looked bad. He tried to play a little more, and he just couldn't move. So he may try to go. I think he will have almost no mobility. He is the point guard. He sets the pace. As you know, he sets the tone and the tempo for that team. And if he's a shell of himself, they will be a shell of themselves. I think Oklahoma City wins this in a blowout, like 105-85.
All right. Game 7, Grizzlies at Thunder. That's what you want to do. What?
Skip's got 105-85. I've got 99-90.
99-90. We'll recap, too, at the end of the show. So 99-90. Moving on. Grizzlies, Thunder, Saturday, 8 Eastern. Staying in the Western Conference. Another Game 7. The Warriors survive and beat the Clippers just by a single point. Let's listen.
I'm proud of my guys. It's been an incredible, incredible ride. And now, against a 3 seed with 2 of the top 10 players in the world and a future Hall of Fame coach, we are going to Game 7 in spite of all the sideline music. And I like my chances because I got a group of guys that want to do whatever it takes to win.
I'm on my way to LA. We said we had to come in here and get a win. We got it. I'm trying to get out.
Steph Curry had 24 points while Chris Paul was only 3 for 10 from the field and couldn't make a difference in the fourth. Paul kind of nursing some injuries and trying to play through the game. Game 7, Stephen A., back in Los Angeles tomorrow. Who wins?
I'm picking the Los Angeles Clippers, Skip. I think it's going to be a thriller. But I'm picking the Los Angeles Clippers to win Game 7, 105-103.
Wow.
It's going to be that close. It's going to be a thriller. But I think they close the deal on their home turf, and they get it done. Because I think ultimately you play big. I think the Jamal Crawfords of the world, the 6th Man of the Year winner who deserved it, congratulations to him. I think he shows up. I can't say enough, Skip. This dude, Darren Collison, Chris Paul's backup, played a real solid game last night. Matt Barnes had 18 points, 11 rebounds, came out hitting shots. I love it. And DeAndre Jordan, let me tell you something about DeAndre Jordan, man. This dude should be the best big man in the game, Skip.
Yep.
If this guy can hit free throws, and I told him, I made sure, because I want to make sure I show him his respect. I said, I didn't pick y'all to win the chip because I don't trust you at the free throw line. I trust everything else about you, but I don't trust you at the free throw line, okay? That's his impediment. And if you watched the game last night, you know why I feel that way. But this dude's ability to block shots and to rebound, had 19 rebounds last night. Skip, this dude is just a man-child down in the post area defensively. And even though he's recording more than 4 blocks per game, it doesn't even count the number of shots he changes and forces guys to miss because he's such a force down low. The problem is that with Jermaine O'Neal, with Big Baby Glenn Davis, who basically said he didn't see it, he was just diving for the ball, but Jermaine O'Neal said, quote, after the game, either he has terrible balance or it was a dirty play when he dived into his legs and made his knee buckle. Those were Jermaine O'Neal's words, not mine. In the end, Jermaine O'Neal, although he's going to play, clearly is not going to be anywhere near 100%. You've got that as a problem. And then on top of it all, you've got David Lee, who's a finesse player. He's not a rough rider. And he has a problem against Blake Griffin, who is going to get calls at the Staples Center, even though he ended up fouling out last night's game, even though that last foul, that was not smart on his part. He shouldn't have touched Draymond Green. I believe that's who it was. Shouldn't have touched him. But in the end, whether it's Chris Paul, and I hope his hamstrings are okay, he says he's playing through some things, and he hurt his hand or whatever the case may be, I expect Chris Paul to have a better game because they dribbled too much last night, weren't moving the basketball fluidly. That's not like Chris Paul's, not like Doc Rivers. Chris Paul did not have a good game last night. None of the guards really had a good game in terms of moving the basketball. I think they rectify that in Game 7. They move the basketball. They're going to get better shots. Blake Griffin's going to have a better game. Chris Paul's going to have a better game. And DeAndre Jordan is just going to be DeAndre Jordan. But I think Steph Curry and Klay Thompson will show up along with the rest of their crew. They'll be hitting their shots. But in the end, it won't be enough because of the size and the athleticism of the Clippers. Golden State will rally late, but they will come up short. The Clippers win Game 7 in a thriller, 105-103.
I did not watch last night's game from the owner's box at Golden State. I was just on my couch in Bristol. That's all I wanted.
I wasn't in the owner's box. I was courtside. But go ahead.
Oh, okay, my bad.
I was in the box.
Don't disrespect him.
Yeah. But just in my little living room in Bristol, watching my little TV, this is what I got. I saw two very good basketball teams play a pretty lousy basketball game. And I don't know if they were drained and a little still distracted by what turned into a very long week. I don't know if they were feeling a little bit of that closeout game pressure. But I hope to see a much better basketball game in Game 7. And I think we will. I'm going to take your prediction, and I'm going to beef it up by 10 points on both sides. I predicted before this series that the Clippers would win in 7 in overtime, and I'm going to stick with that, 115-113 in overtime. You got 105-103. I'm 115-113. And it's going to come down to two players. It's going to come down to Steph Curry. He got off to, as you know, a very hot start in the first quarter last night. Hit 6 out of 12 shots, hit a couple threes out of 5 attempts, 14 points, and set their tone. From that point forward, Steph wasn't Steph anymore. He made 3 out of 12 and no more threes. And you brought up Chris Paul. And I have been tough on him on this show because he is almost a superstar. He is on the precipice of being a superstar, but I need to see more, and it's going to have to start in Game 7. I'm going to say it again. In his postseason career, CP3, who has 0 rings, which prompted me the other day to say CP0, is now 19-27. 19-27 in the postseason. He is now 8 games under 500, and he came up small again last night. As Kerry pointed out, you pointed out, 3 for 10. I don't know if he's got a hamstring issue. Maybe you know better. You said he's got a hand issue. Maybe he's fighting through. His hamstring isn't bad enough that he can't move. You can still see him move. Couple breaks last night. He looked okay to me. So I need to see more from both of those players. Whoever plays biggest of those two little guys, to me, will win the game. And I'm going to say that Chris Paul does have a big game in Game 7. And I'm going to say that it will go to the wire because I think Jermaine, and this is a complete shot-in-the-dark guess, I'm going to say he'll be well enough to play, and I'm with you. I did not think Big Baby meant to injure his knee, and the way he walked off the floor, I think he's got a chance to play. I think it might be a sprain, but I think he might be able to tough it out and play. He only played 2 minutes last night. They still won the game. Draymond Green played huge last night, just the way DeAndre did, Stephen A., and you brought him up, but he had 14 and 14 rebounds. It's pretty good. Now, he's not nearly as big, but go ahead.
Well, see, here's the problem. Draymond Green is tough as nails.
He is.
He's got loads of heart.
Yep.
He clearly a dude that played for Tom Izzo, my favorite college coach, okay? The problem is he overachieves.
Yep.
Because he's got so much heart. You wish somebody else on their front line played like him.
I agree.
You know, Jermaine O'Neal, you can't knock him. You got to be proud of this dude. This 18 years in the league, man. The fact that he's still here and being effective for you, and the only reason he's got to do the duty is because Andrew Bogut is Andrew Bogus. I mean, this dude, the minute a team gets in a bonus, he starts faking injuries for crying out loud so he can come out of a game. He don't want it bad enough.
You heard what I said? Injuries when they're in the bonus?
Yeah, because he's scared to go to the free throw line. That's right, I said it.
Oh, wow.
Go back and watch the tape. Go back.
The poor man he had a broken rib. He's out.
Excuse me. You know what? It's broke. Whatever. I'm not saying that the rib ain't broke. I'm trying to sit there and say that, you know, when it's going, with your playoff lives on the line, I bet you if he didn't have his money, he'd be playing. I tell you that much. That's why I call him Andrew Bogus, and I stand by it. It's ridiculous, okay? And I'm gonna stay by that. The second you go back and watch the tape, Skip. The second y'all go into the penalty, all of a sudden he starts limping. He grabs something. He's asking out of games. Go back and watch the tape. You can see it clear as day. It's embarrassing.
I'm sorry. I've seen enough.
I'm watching tape of the Golden State Warriors, and when the few times he played, I saw that kind of stuff. That's why it ain't bogus, it's bogus. But anyway, I digress. My point is, when you look at Draymond Green, he's got loads of heart. He ain't scared of anything, but he's the only guy they have to try and defend Blake Griffin, because David Lee is going to get into foul trouble. Mark Jackson needs to keep David Lee away from Blake Griffin and put him on DeAndre Jordan, because David Lee's going to foul out in 10 minutes because Blake Griffin's going to get the calls. Chris Paul, here's the issue. He's pressing. And when you got to, he's just pressing. He's so intense. He's got to relax. Calm down. Listen, I keep telling you, he's a superstar point guard, a floor general, an orchestrator. He is elite on that level, but he wasn't last night. Dribbling the ball entirely too much, not facilitating ball movement. He will not do that in Game 7. Chris Paul will show up and run a team the way a team is supposed to be run, and that is going to help propel the Clippers to victory in Game 7.
All right. Well, listen. Mathematical modeling suggests that the Clippers will win this 70%. So you guys are correct. Stephen A., is there a way in which you could talk to the bosses about doing a week of shows in San Francisco?
You know what? I mean, listen, San Francisco is a lovely, beautiful city, but so is New York. So is South Beach. So is La La. Let's not get carried away now. Let's not get
carried away. I'm sorry.
We're going to leave it there. The NBA's Advisory Finance Committee met on Thursday to discuss the process for termination of Donald Sterling's ownership of the Clippers. The committee agreed to move forward as quickly as possible, and they'll meet again next week. But here's the rub. Reporters say Sterling will sue. In fact, he relishes in litigation. And if that is the case, the Clippers' ownership decision could be tied up for years. So, Stephen A., here's the question. So how long will this battle go on before it really becomes an issue, specifically in the NBA with players, etc.?
Personally speaking, I don't think that it is going to be much of an issue as it pertains to the players and their willingness to continue to play for this organization, even if he is owner. What people don't realize is that the players themselves want what they want. And I want to stand up again and applaud. I can't say enough about LeBron James and the comments that he made. People have to understand that they were relatively unsolicited. The man just stood up and took a stance immediately. The greatest player in the world decided to do that, and other players followed suit. To me, the two people that stood out more than anybody in all of this, Skip, was LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, a relatively quiet individual who doesn't politicize things and gets himself involved in a lot of things normally, at least from a verbal perspective, took a stance. And I just can't applaud both of them enough. They stood up for what was right. They stood up for all of us, and they stood up in particular for black people in terms of what Donald Sterling had to say. And I just sit here today an incredibly proud individual to both of them. But people have to understand, they're saying, well, you know what, Sterling could hold on to ownership because of, like an article in USA Today, Skip, that you tipped me off to earlier this morning, when they're talking about he can engage in the divorce proceedings with his wife, Rochelle, and it can be stretched out. And as a result of that, you know, it could be difficult because you're talking about dividing assets because it's California, it's community property, and the court system could end up stalling things. And they're thinking that's going to affect the players. They don't understand that what the players want, most of all, is to know that the NBA, meaning its commissioner and its board of governors, did absolutely positively everything imaginable to get this man out as owner. Adam Silver giving him a lifetime ban, combined with the owners scheduled to vote 29-0, by the way, from what I'm hearing, to boot him out as owner. If ultimately it goes to the California court system, all the players expect the NBA owners and the league to do is stand up and continue the fight to get him out. But it's not as if they're going to be appalled by, oh, he's still the owner of the Clippers and the court system is holding it up. So you know what? We're not going to play for him. No, the players are not going to do that. Chris Paul's not going to do that. Blake Griffin's not going to do that. DeAndre Jordan's not going to do that. Jamal Crawford's not going to do that. Matt Barnes is not going to do that. Doc Rivers is not going to do that. None of these players are going to take that position because that's a court thing. That's an American judicial systemic thing. That's not the NBA. Now, if the owners stood up and said, no, we're not going to vote him out, we're going to allow him to stay on as owner, and it's not universally recognized that the owners are completely and emphatically against, you know, the racism that he conveyed and spewed, then you have a different problem. But so long as they stand up as one, in conjunction with the players, and say we are against this man, we are in support of Adam Silver's lifetime ban, and they vote him out, the NBA constitutional bylaws shows that they exhausted all their options. You're not going to get any problems from the players.
Okay, that's what I needed to hear from you, because after I read the USA Today article, I began to get nervous for the whole state of the NBA, because I could see a scenario whereby we get all the way to opening night next season, and Donald Sterling is still effectively the owner, the banished owner of the Clippers. He's suspended for life, but his name's still on the checks. He's signing the checks, he and his wife. The team is held in a family trust. And as you point out, if they happen to file for divorce one way or the other, wife to husband, husband to wife, this thing could get gummed up in court for a long, long time, for several years maybe. I don't know. This is way over my head. Remember, Donald Sterling is a litigious billionaire. That means he has a long history of suing, and he has unlimited resources to sue. And he has a very unusual situation here that he could sue over, because clearly he made private remarks that became very public because they were illegally recorded in the state of California, against the law to record without the party knowing you're recording them. Now, do we all want him out? Yes, we do. I wish he could be out tomorrow. But I'm just afraid this is going to get really complicated, and I was afraid you were going to tell me that Chris Paul and company were going to say, time out. We need this thing done now, because when we go back to Tuesday, Wednesday, it was like, we want him out today. And again, he's now banned for life, so you're telling me that's enough. And if that's enough, I'm okay. But quick point of order, we had Jared Jack, and I respect Jared. He's a tough-minded young man. And this may not be realistic on his part, but I like the sentiment. He said basically yesterday, hey, I wouldn't be playing right now. I would say I won't play another game until that man is officially removed as the owner of that team. So I thought you might tell me today that that may become Chris Paul's stance. Then we're going to have a big problem.
No, I know these players, and I haven't spoken to them directly about this particular point that we're discussing. Yeah. But I know Jared Jack. I know Chauncey Billups. And by the way, Chauncey Billups, I wanted to modify my position the other day because he and I had a conversation about how he said that he wouldn't play no matter what. Right. And he talked about why. And I get where he's coming from. So I definitely wanted to support him on that because I hadn't spoken to him directly about that before we went on the air. But I know these guys, and I'm telling you that what's important to them, of course, LeBron James is absolutely right. When he says the man needs to be gone, we want him out. But at the same time, if the NBA stands up, the most important thing to the players is that the NBA league office and its owners, its board of governors, have exhausted all and any means to get rid of Donald Sterling. If the NBA owners, along with the commissioner, can legitimately stand up and say there is absolutely nothing else that we can do, the players are fine with that. Because what you're talking about is this. Let's say, for example, you can't force Donald Sterling to sell his team because of these strategies that he employs to stretch it out, get more lawyers involved, delay and procrastinate the process, etc. If that transpires and that draws it out, then essentially his name is on the check, but he still ain't running the team.
No.
He's not running the team because he's got the lifetime ban. So if he's not running the team and it's just a technical issue because the legal system has gotten involved and that transcends the NBA, the players are fine with that. What they won't tolerate is you thinking that the lifetime ban is enough, but the owners don't then come forward within the next 3 weeks and vote his butt out. Yeah. If the owners try to turn around and some of them make the argument that he does not need to go, then that's a different ball game than the Jarrett Jacks of the world, the Chris Pauls of the world, and those opinions, Chauncey Billups and all of them. That comes into play because they will not tolerate that. But as long as they vote him out, that's it. The players are fine.
The quarterback, number 4, Derek Carr.
Carr sets up to throw in the post. Adams goes up. Touchdown, Fresno State.
I think he has as good an arm talent as I've seen in the last couple of years.
Carr heaves one. Adams is in for the touchdown. Shotgun. End zone. Touchdown. Bulldogs. A laser bullseye throw by Derek Carr.
Let's get this thing.
All right, our next guest, former Fresno State quarterback Derek Carr, who made a mad dash at the end of his collegiate season. Now you're projected to go in the early rounds. You heard Gruden say that was a huge compliment, was it not?
It really was.
Right. Well, welcome to First Take. Thanks for being here.
By the way, we got to ask before we
go into all that.
Well,
He's making a statement.
He's got Raiders colors on. Is there a method to this madness here?
No method.
There's no message being sent here.
My wife picked out my outfit.
Oh, it's her fault.
So she dresses you now. We're putting it on her. So that's where she wants to be.
Well, I think y'all missed the big question to ask him. Does your wife have a problem with John Gruden, who seems to have a man crush on you for crying out loud? As much as he loves you.
All right. Derek Carr, brother of former NFL quarterback #1 pick back in 2002, David Carr. Let's talk about this. I read that your brother has been helping you prepare for the NFL. And I ask you, just in all honesty, do you ever get tired of the comparisons?
Oh, no. I mean, he's such a, he's been in 13 years in the NFL now. He's doing things that I've wanted to do since I was a little kid. And so for me to, be compared to him in those things throughout my college career, it didn't help. I picked the same college, played the same position. It's good I picked a different number at least. But, to be compared to him, to me, it's a blessing.
So you have become the hot guy. You are the fastest riser. Mm-hmm. Mel Kiper has you going 20 to Arizona later in the first round. But when I talk to evaluators around the league, a couple have pointed out that they have only one little glitch, and that was in your 2 bowl games, standing up to the pressure that was brought upon you by SMU and that Margus Hunt, who's about, 6'8"?
Yeah.
He was draped on you a couple times, and then USC in the bowl game this past year. Is that, just give us an idea, how fair or accurate is that evaluation of your bowl performances?
I was in the game and I played them, so you can't evaluate them. In both of those games, to tell you the honest truth, and I didn't tell anybody going into the game or after that I was not healthy in either of those games. That's why, the Senior Bowl was so important to me that I wanted to get out there to the Senior Bowl against SEC, ACC competition. Yep. When I found out I was on the South team, I was fired up because I got to play against those guys every single day and show them in a game situation and in practice that I can play, and that, you know, the bowl game was just, it was a bad game. You know, this is who I really am against, you know, SEC competition.
You mean the USC guys?
Yes.
Yeah, because they were on the other.
No, I'm just saying, I just wanted to show the scouts.
Oh, show the scouts.
Show the scouts, show everyone that, you know, yes, it wasn't my best performance, but, you know, this is who I really am. Okay. And I really wanted to show that at the Super Bowl.
And how were you beat up in those games? What were your...
Well, my junior year, I played the whole year with my ab muscle tore off, and I had a sports hernia and a little hairline fracture on my pelvic bone. And that happened at training camp. And so that wasn't fun. And then, my senior year, this past, the USC game, I had a jacked up, left shoulder AC joint. So it just wasn't, the right thing.
Stephen A.
Before I ask the question, I want to state that I love the fact that, you're so close to your brother, and your brother's always been helping you, because, I've never ran into a player that's had a negative word to say about him. He seems to be an incredibly high character guy, and obviously if he's got any influence on you, which I'm sure he has, that's a great, great thing for you. But I also want to ask this question. When people look at you, they bring up your brother constantly. A matter of fact, you look at some of the scouting reports about you, when they mention liability, they'll bring up your brother's name. I want to know, how does that make you feel as somebody who leans on your brother, obviously, who communicates with him, who loves him dearly, who works out with them, throwing footballs on high school football fields, for crying out loud. I want to know, how does that make you feel, particularly as this NFL draft approaches?
Absolutely. And it's something that, I knew was going to be there throughout this whole process. I knew that, things, his career didn't, turn out the way that maybe we planned it turned out. But he's definitely not saddened or, hard on himself about what happened. He understands that, it was a tough situation in Houston. He understands that it wasn't the ideal thing to go to an expansion team, and especially starting as a rookie. That's tough to do, let alone doing it on an expansion team. I understand all those things, and so does he. And I understood that those things would come up. But to answer that, it's such a blessing to have him here, because I get to learn everything that he did right, everything that he did wrong. He's taught me, and he's taught me how to be better. He's taught me things that he wished he did, early on.
Derek, let me ask you this question. What do you think when you say, we all talk about how you can learn from what people have done as it pertains to the positive. What did your brother do that he would advise you to do differently?
He always tells me, when you go into the building, when you go in to get that first playbook, he said, make sure you know that before you try and do anything else. You're going to get pulled in, when you get drafted to an NFL team playing the position we do, you're going to get pulled in all different directions. They're going to want you to be here, do this, do that. He said, your number one reason why you're in that spot is because you know the playbook and you can complete passes. He said, make sure you know the protections, make sure you know the receiver's route, make sure you know the guard's responsibility, know everything about that. That way you can go in that locker room and you can be a coach in that locker room for the young guys, and as you go on in your career.
So as you heard all the early hype, Bridgewater, Manziel, Bortles, did you have any moments where you sat back and thought, I'm as good as those guys are? In fact, I might be better than those guys.
Yeah, and to answer that, obviously those guys are extremely talented. Those guys are awesome players, and they're going to get picked high and do great things in this league. For me, I would sit there and wonder, is it where I went to school? Is it this? Is it that? And then I finally realized it doesn't matter. I'm going to get picked up by somebody, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to work my tail off, and I'm going to learn how to be a professional. I'm going to learn from the veterans. I can't wait to reach out to the veterans, to those professional guys that have been there, done it, and to lean on them and learn from those guys. That's where my mindset went, because I was thinking the total wrong way. My mindset is, wherever I'm picked, wherever I go, I'm ready to go to work.
Yeah. Any indication you could go higher than 20?
Yeah, from what I've heard, there's things, that may point that way.
Really?
I don't want to step on any team's toes or GMs or things like that, but who knows? And it could happen, it could not happen, but hopefully it does.
All right, Stephen A., one more question before we get out of here.
If as you look around the NFL, if somebody asked you to describe and highlight yourself as a talent in terms of what you bring to the table, what answer would you give them?
Oh my goodness! Number one is my preparation. The arm strength, the accuracy, all those things, athletic ability, all that stuff is great. But if you don't prepare for these NFL defenses and how sophisticated they are, they want to embarrass you. They want to go out and embarrass you and take away your son's food. They don't want him to eat. That's their plan, and my whole mission is to make sure my son can eat for the rest of his life. And so I make sure that I prepare the best that I can so he can have a good way.
Hey, Stephen A. Derek says he's almost as good a basketball player as a football player. What do you think?
Okay. Well, I don't know. All I know is this. He passed for 3,000 yards a few years ago. Then it was 4,000 yards. Last year it was 5,000 yards. He seems to be moving progressively forward. I'm in no position to question or doubt anything that he says.
All right. Derek Carr, impressive young man and John Gruden's man crush, so says Stephen A.
I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Game 6, Hawks-Pacers. Hawks could not close the deal, perhaps a team too chippy. Clearly evident when George Hill and Mike Scott got into a stare-down and later pushing contest during the first half of the game. Both received tees. But on the sidelines, pay attention, Paul George and Russell Butler made small steps onto the court. And according to NBA rules, all players not involved in the fight must remain in the immediate vicinity of the bench. And if they don't, they can be suspended and fined. So we asked this question. Stephen A. Smith, is for you. Should that rule be enforced with Paul George?
It shouldn't be, but I suspect that the NBA will enforce it because if they're as nitpicky as they used to be, obviously, if you recall, Skip, they did that to my Knicks more than a decade ago. Suspended guys for games 6 and 7. I was so appalled by the discussion I can't even put into words. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Adam Silver elected to do so, but I think it's important to recognize you can't leave the vicinity of the bench. Last time I checked, Paul George is in the vicinity of the bench. So to me, as a result of that, he should not be suspended. Not to mention the fact that it's a game 7 and there was no fist being thrown or anything like that. I would be very appalled if the NBA elected to suspend anybody on that Pacers bench because as far as I'm concerned, nobody left the vicinity. I mean, if you got size 14 shoes and half of your foot stepped over the line or whatever, who cares? I mean, get over it. I really hope that they don't do something like this, but I don't know what they're going to do. I suspect they're going to suspend Paul, but I'm praying that they will not. Let the boys play, and let's make sure a first-round playoff series isn't decided by the commissioner's office.
I am shocked that you think he will get suspended.
Yeah, I don't put it past the NBA, Skip. I'm telling you right now. I mean, if it was Stern, you stepped your foot over the line. You can't step past the line. You're suspended. That's what I'm scared of.
He set that precedent with your Knicks.
Yes.
And then my Spurs got the benefit of one of those calls. Remember back in, what was it, 07? Robert Horry cheap-shotted Steve Nash.
And Amari came over,
and so did Boris Diaw, who was in with the Suns. And they were both suspended for Game 5 of that Western Conference semifinal. Thank you very much, Commissioner. But, again, it was unfair. And this would be shamefully unfair. So, once again, I think we're about to find out a little more about our new commissioner, Adam Silver. We found out a whole lot about him earlier this week. But will he uphold the sort of conditions whereby this rule is governed by Commissioner Stern in the past? Because he was no nonsense, no tolerance. I mean, he's 1 inch over the line, you are gone. And they definitely stepped across the line into the court of play. So I wouldn't, because to me, it says immediate vicinity in the rule book.
Yeah,
I think that's like immediate vicinity to me. I didn't see any intent on their part.
Exactly.
Come on.
It's exactly that. But not only that, Skip, also the assistant coaches. It's their job to try to, because you're a player, you're caught up in the emotions of the moment, and it's their job to police you as well. So I think one of the things that should be implemented in the rule is taking into account, it's not like they came sprinting on the court into the action or whatever. Stepping a foot over the line onto the court from the bench, you're still in the vicinity of the bench, and at least give the assistant coaches a chance to see. It's not like guys push the assistant coaches out of the way or just just shove them aside and try to go on fight or something. Conceivably, you got to give the assistant coaches a chance to get up and get in front of the players, too.
Yeah.
Because the players are not thinking about that particular rule. They're caught up in the heat of action. So I think it's incumbent upon the league office to take those things, those human elements into account. And if they don't do it here, it would be incredibly disappointing and unfair to the Indiana Pacers. No question.
Can you imagine if baseball had this rule? Nobody would be eligible. They'd all be gone, right?
That's right.
What the NBA does not want is for someone to engage in the fray, to escalate,
That's right.
To have someone's back literally where they're coming up behind and all of a sudden things start to escalate. Nope, can't have that. But in this case, I don't think he will. I don't think that the new commissioner, and again, there are other people involved.
He better not, because it would be a decision that would be incredibly uncomfortable to witness.
Yeah, well, especially when you consider,
especially when you consider what's allowed in other sports. It would provoke the kind of question: why do you have to be so stringent with these guys?
Yep.
Stephen A., speaking of with Game 7 in question, if Paul George plays, doesn't play, whatever, who wins the game? We're assuming he's playing.
If they play, I think the Pacers win Game 7. I think they win it by about a score of 90-80. But I think if he doesn't play, Atlanta can beat him.
Okay. I told you.
Can decide his presence can decide the outcome of Game 7.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to assume he will play. And I'm also going to assume that Atlanta will win this game and win this series. I told you yesterday that I thought the pressure last night was more on the Hawks because all of a sudden they wake up at home with a closeout game. And I thought they crumbled under that pressure late in that game. They made too many blunders, and boy, did the Pacers rely on their sort of mantra, which is when in doubt, go west, young men. They went west, as in David West. He was huge down the stretch in that game.
Big time.
But it was coupled with the fact that Atlanta wasn't huge. Atlanta lost that game as much as the Pacers won it. Now I'm going to remind you, Atlanta has won 3 of its last 4 games in Indianapolis, including the one in the regular season. 3 of the last 4, including 2 of the 3 in this series. I don't think they're afraid at all playing in that building. I think they feel real comfortable there. I think the pressure shifts completely back onto the home team, the very disappointing home team, and they wake up and say, uh-oh, we don't trust ourselves the way we used to. We still have the Hibbert issue hanging over us. He didn't play much last night. How are they going to deal with that? I don't think they can. I think Atlanta will play just as well as Atlanta has in the previous home games there. And I got it 102-95 visiting team.
I certainly don't disagree with you. I think, like I said, I got it 90-80 the home team. I don't blame you for feeling that way because this series has been all over the place. I just feel like the Atlanta Hawks flat out choked last night.
They did.
To be tied at 85 and then to collapse the way that they did. I mean, botched layups, missed, turnovers, defensive assignments, and then David West. I can't say enough about him because, when it was tied, he was the only guy on the Pacers that didn't look nervous.
He wanted the ball.
He wanted the ball.
He did.
Just give me the ball.
I agree.
Just give me the ball. I'm going to take you there. And he looked calm and composed, and he reminded me of that dude that used to be in New Orleans helping Chris Paul.
I agree.
And I was very, very impressed with him. And I think that going back to their home floor, to fold in that moment on your home court in Game 6, well, what you going to do in Game 7? Why should I believe in you? That's what I think about Atlanta right now.
All right, we're still waiting a decision from the NBA on whether or not Paul George will play. Meanwhile, Game 7, Hawks at Pacers, Saturday, 5:30 Eastern. Tune in, folks. The next step in removing Donald Sterling as owner from the Clippers.
What makes the Indy 500 the greatest spectacle in racing?
Back home again. We are free. Everyone in the grandstands are on their feet. You're now the winner of the Indianapolis 500, my friend.
The Indianapolis 500, Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on ABC.
Mayweather once again said it is, quote, basic common sense, end quote, that Pacquiao has used performance-enhancing drugs. You get writers saying Floyd is scared. No, Floyd is smart.
What have I been telling you? He's scared to death of Manny Pacquiao.
Why you keep dismissing it and talking about he's scared? He really
says
believes
he's going to get hurt.
He really believes the guy's cheating.
Does Manny look like a steroid creation? Does he look like he could start at linebacker in the National Football League? You know what he's been afraid of? I've told you this from the start. Pretty boy Floyd is worried that for the first time in his career, he is going to get hit and hit and hit. He's going to get cut. He's going to get hurt. He is scared to death.
Manny, do you think Mayweather is afraid of you?
I think it's kind of that.
I think it's kind of that too. What in the name of Muhammad Ali could be holding up this fight? I can only arrive at one conclusion, Stephen A. Smith, that your man Floyd may or may not weather is scared. No guts, no glory for your man Floyd.
I can't defend this anymore. I have to believe that Floyd is ducking.
Wow.
I finally found out why Mayweather really is scared of him.
Yeah.
He don't want to sleep. That's probably how Mayweather would have caught him. I hope, Skip, that this enlightened you.
Manny Pacquiao let Floyd Mayweather off the hook by walking into that punch. And now he probably won't get that chance because of this mistake. Does Mayweather have any punching power? No! Might as well give him a pillow in the ring. Let him hit the guy with the pillow.
No matter how much punching power they have, he's able to keep them off of him. Apparently his punches sting enough. Who's more capable of hitting him with something he doesn't see coming? It would be Mayweather. Pacquiao, I like you. You're a very nice guy. Stay away from Mayweather.
I think he would still punish Floyd Mayweather, which is why Floyd will continue to run for Manny Pacquiao.
If you want Floyd so badly, accept his turn. Floyd doesn't need Manny. Manny needs Floyd.
Floyd,
it's double what you offered.
I dare you to pick up the phone today.
All right, before Manny and Mayweather could ever be a possibility, let's talk about his fight this Saturday. Floyd Mayweather is favored to win over Marcos Maidana on Saturday night, but according to USA Today Sports, one of the promoters of the fight says he's concerned about distractions in Floyd's personal life. 3 weeks ago, Floyd announced that he and his longtime fiancée broke up. On Wednesday night, Showtime's all-access reality series revealed that the breakup came shortly before Jackson, his former fiancée, was pregnant with twins and is no longer pregnant. All things considered, Stephen A., how big of a distraction do you believe the breakup is for Mayweather?
Well, it's always a distraction when you love somebody deeply and you lose, and then you end up parting ways. And in the case of Floyd, if you've seen Miss Jackson, obviously, for the fellas, we understand. However, he's Floyd Money Mayweather. It is Marcos Maidana, who is as slow as a snail with arthritis, assuming a snail could get arthritis, which I don't know that to be true. The fact is that I don't expect this dude to touch Floyd Mayweather Jr. I'm not concerned. I'm not worried. Doesn't faze me. It don't mean anything. Okay? Bottom line is simple. We're talking about the best pound-for-pound champion on the planet Earth, the most skilled boxer in the world, going up against a guy with considerable punching power who just beat up on one of Floyd's proteges. Floyd is not going to take him lightly. Floyd is going to handle his business because all he has to do is make this guy miss, which is going to be one of the easiest things in the world and in his career he's had to do because Marcos Maidana is slow. He's not going to be able to touch Floyd Mayweather. Floyd could be distracted, and we understand that. If I lost my woman, as fine as she is, I would be distracted too. But in the end, you handle your business because that's what professionals do, and that is that. Floyd will be just fine. It is no big deal. Don't worry about it. He won't be touched. He might as well go back to calling himself Pretty Boy instead of Money. He's going to make his money, but he should be Pretty Boy because he's not going to get touched. As a matter of fact, I want to see, I think that the suspense is whether or not Floyd's going to get hit in the face. He might not get his face touched. That's how slow this dude is. He might not get touched.
Oh, he's fighting Marcos Maidana. I thought it was Madonna the singer he was fighting.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, seriously.
It doesn't matter. It might as well be her.
Oh.
Because
like a prayer.
He's not,
yeah, like he needs a prayer.
He's not going to be touched. Trust me.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Now, in all seriousness, we've heard lots and lots this week about Floyd and from Floyd, about retirement, about emotional issues, about how he's to the point in his career where he does want to settle down and have a family, and maybe after 20 years of fighting in the fight game that he's burning out a little bit. Then I read a quote this morning in USA Today from, Richard Schaefer, the CEO of Golden Boy Promotions.
I read it. I read
it. Every time we discuss this right before a fight, a pay-per-view fight, you have to ask yourself, is this somehow scripted pre-fight hype for the pay-per-view? So I don't know, but I'm going to, just real quick, his quote from yesterday was, Richard Schaefer, who should know, says, is Floyd going to be focused as he has been in past fights? Based on what I've seen and heard today, I doubt that very much. This is serious. It's not like somebody rear-ended his car. This is life. There are some things that you can turn off and turn on in your head. This is not one of those things. So Richard Schaefer is saying it's a big deal that Floyd is going to be emotionally rocked, distracted, going into a fight that he should win with one glove tied behind his back. So I don't know. Could this possibly be his last fight? I seriously doubt it. But I think these sound like serious issues that we should treat seriously, as you point out.
Well, there's no question about it. I mean, listen, you get to a point. I mean, anybody in life, you do something and you do something successfully. It's one of the things that I tell kids, Skip, when I'm on a lecture circuit. Do you understand that once you sign on a dotted line, for me personally, I sign a contract on a dotted line. I don't think about the money because I know it's there. Once it's done, it's about the work. And then when you do the work successfully, you start noticing different gaps, things that are missing in your life when you have certain things handled. Floyd Mayweather doesn't have a money issue. Floyd Mayweather doesn't have a career issue. You find yourself looking at yourself and you think about, because he and I talked about this in the past, you've done it all, okay? And not only have you done it all, you've earned more money than anybody in boxing history. Well, as a fighter, what else is there? Because you can't fight life. You'll never win at that game. There are times in life when you think you can, but then Father Time reminds you that it's undefeated. And that you start looking at your own mortality. And when you see that and you notice something missing, you become a bit despondent, a bit melancholy. It doesn't last very long, but those moments creep up frequently more than it usually has. Because you're living high and mighty and you're living a life, and then one day you're just sitting at home alone and you're like, damn, I don't have this, and I don't have this, and I don't have that from a personal perspective. And all of a sudden it deflates you. Because you realize some of the things that you've missed. And that's probably the moment that they caught Floyd in. Remember, Skip, when I sat down with him and did the interview with him last year, the one-on-one? And he talked about how he was in a jail cell and they had to basically put him in solitary confinement because you couldn't put him in a general population because he's Floyd Mayweather. And guys would be looking to come at him. And he talked about how he had to make friends with roaches. He talked about a guy that once had to do that over a course of 3 years. And he said, if that guy could do that, then I could handle this. But to be in isolation, to surround yourself with all of these people and have the world at your feet, to go from there to a 3-month stint, basically, where you are completely confined and by yourself, just think about what you have to go through. And when you come out from that, even though it was 3 months, Skip, some people couldn't deal with that for 3 days. So when you go through something like that, it resonates profoundly. And you go through some things, man, that you never can recover from. But it doesn't mean you have to recover from it. It just means you have to recognize it, appreciate for what it is, and move forward. I think Floyd's going to handle his business, but I think what Floyd is revealing is that he's human. And he went through some things that will never leave him. And he's going through that, and I think people caught him in that moment. And that's what he's going through right now.
What you just said is profound and powerful, and I appreciate it. And it leads to the discussion of the potential Mayweather-Pacquiao fight that we talk to death on this show because it seems like it's never going to happen. And now we have to ask ourselves, is boxing a priority for either fighter as they advance toward 40 years of age, into their later 30s?
Well,
I don't know.
It's interesting that you say that. Here would be my answer to that question. I don't believe that boxing is a priority for Pacquiao any longer, and I don't believe it's going to be a priority for Floyd. But I think if they fought each other, it would be the priority for them, that encounter, because that's a once-in-a-lifetime encounter,
Yep.
and neither wants to go down as having lost to the other. So I think if something like that happens, I think you'd see Floyd at his all-time best and his all-time focus. But it's not like the career, the sport of boxing is the priority that it once was. But those moments creep up on you. And I think you'd see people, even, Miss Jackson and everybody, if Floyd were to fight Manny Pacquiao, I think you'd see anybody who loved him rally around him for that moment, because it's moments like that you don't get back. And it's all hands on deck. They've got to propel you. They've got to support you. They've got to be your foundation. Because to lose a moment like that, knowing that you didn't give it your all, or knowing that somebody distracted you, you don't recover from that. You can recover from it if you give your all and you just lose to a better man. But if you know that you didn't put forth a 100% effort and focus in order to get it done, you'll never forgive yourself. And people who love you would never allow that to happen.
Okay, so you still believe that Mayweather will fight Pacquiao and that
Yes.
Mayweather will lose to Pacquiao?
I still believe that Mayweather will fight Pacquiao, and I think he will. And I think he will give Pacquiao a boxing lesson.
He does not believe.
How can you teach the teacher? That's what I don't think you can do that.
You are something.
Floyd will make Floyd will. You will have yourself question. I'm not even saying Pacquiao will get knocked out, even though I think he could get stopped. But I think that Floyd Mayweather would give him such a boxing lesson, it will make you question Pacquiao's boxing skills.
With less than a week till the draft, Skip has a column up on ESPN.com right now about Johnny Football. It reads in part, Manziel with his infectious it factor would immediately turn the Texans into the it team. They've been just a quarterback away for 3 seasons. Matt Schaub completed lots of passes, but never the pass. Manziel would soon make every player in that locker room and every fan in that stadium believe that they finally had a star who will make the play. With Manziel next season, the Texans would go from 2-14 to 10-6, rather. All right, we welcome in our Todd McShay. It's been said once or twice on this show before, so I'm going to ask you this question. Would the Houston Texans be crazy not to take Manziel with that first pick?
Or crazy to take, however you want to look at it.
Crazy not to.
Or crazy to.
I think they would be crazy too.
Oh.
It would be more crazy to than crazy not to. I would get it. You know what? I would get it if they decided that he was the guy and they're going all in. Because if you're going to draft Manziel, you have to go all in as an organization. You have to buy into what he does. You have to make the organization about him. You have to adjust your offensive system. You have to be willing to meet him halfway, and you have to believe that he's willing to meet you halfway. And by that I mean that he's going to have to change his work habits from college. He's going to have to be in the building more than he ever probably anticipated in his life, of being in terms of the focus and what it would take to be excellent at the next level, because he's not ready right now. He's not. He's a phenomenal athlete. He's a winner. He does all the little things you're looking for. And he's special in terms of his athleticism, and he's accurate despite terrible mechanics a lot of times. But he's going to have to become more mechanically sound, and he's going to have to learn to win within the pocket. He's going to have to become more patient. He's got to learn how to go through progressions and how to set protections. The guy never set protections in college. So it's going to be a huge leap for him mentally, and I think you have to be convinced, as I said, that he's willing to meet you halfway and do all of those things. So to answer your question, I would get it. But I just think when you have a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, who's such a unique and special talent at defensive end, if you're not going to move out of that pick, I think you have to take him.
So we had John Gruden on the show a week ago right now.
Okay.
And he was extremely outspoken about how the Houston Texans must take Johnny Football. And his point, I'll just skim through a couple of quick quotes. He says, I think Johnny can create offense unlike most guys I have ever seen. He has the guts, quickness, vision, and he loves the big arena and the big stage. Guys like him don't come across the map very often.
Did he specifically say that the Houston Texans should take him?
Absolutely. Like, no-brainer, no doubt about it. He has some doubts about Clowney's motor from last year, and we've talked that to death. But his point is, as Al Davis taught him as he was coaching the Raiders, the quarterback is everything. Even if you have this guy, and Todd McShay has said, Jadeveon Clowney is once in 20 years. I do not disagree with that point.
Talent-wise, yep.
Talent-wise. But Johnny Manziel, to me, is once in a lifetime for the Houston Texans, because he's a Texas kid from right up the road, as you well know, in College Station. There's said to be about 300,000 A&M alumni just in Houston alone.
Are you going to let that factor in?
I would, because he will ignite that city in ways nobody... Jadeveon cannot ignite that city the way Johnny could.
And isn't any quarterback going to ignite that city like nobody else if they come in and win?
There's an it factor here. Bortles doesn't have the it factor.
But Bortles comes in and wins 10 games, and Manziel comes in and wins 10 games. What's the difference? Are you selling more jerseys? Is that what we're worried about?
Okay, but to me, Bortles has no shot of winning 10 games. Johnny does.
Now we're back on track.
Okay. So with Johnny, Gruden even goes to, who wouldn't want LeBron James and Drake on your sideline? That's part of the Johnny package you're going to get. Now, a lot of old-time, long-time NFL evaluators
or young
would just say, give me a break. Who cares? There is mystique. There is aura. How did this kid from Tyler, Texas, become best buddies with LeBron James and Drake? That's no small thing to me.
Oh, he's special.
Okay? They see that he's special.
Yeah.
I mean, he already has a commercial, a national TV commercial with LeBron James for McDonald's. That's amazing to me. And it says that the message that will get sent to the team is, we got a special quarterback here, because LeBron and Drake, they're coming to our games. They're coming to our road games. They want to root for us on our sideline. That's mystique. That's aura. Gruden gets that, knows that, and would embrace that. And I think Johnny is going to make special plays in this league consistently. Now, again, you've brought up, can he stay upright? Can he stay just relatively healthy? Again, Gruden spent 2 long days with him, and I don't think any evaluator breaks down this tape any more than John does for these draftees for his quarterback camp. And he gets to eat lunch and dinner with them off camera, and then he gets to put them through the equivalent of a pro day. He's in awe of Johnny and says that Johnny has convinced him he will grow up at the next level and he will slide and stay out of harm's way. I believe that, because remember, he was trying to win games last year in spite of the 109th rated defense in Division I, 109. I mean, they gave up, what was it, like 42 points a game? And it's outrageous how bad their defense was. We don't want to hear from you. We're tired of hearing you.
You're tired of hearing from me?
Yes.
On Manziel?
Yes.
I say nothing. I say nothing. I was unaware, Todd McShay, of the PR firm called Bayless Incorporated. I did not know that Manziel hired. I had no clue that Johnny Manziel hired Bayless Incorporated as his personal PR firm. This dude is fixated on this guy. I don't understand it. Skip, I need this question. Seriously, Skip, I need you to answer me this question. I have no doubt how you feel about his skill. But seriously, short answer. Would you feel this adamant about Johnny Manziel if Cleveland or Jacksonville had the #1 overall pick? I'm asking that question because I know you believe in his skill set, but is your passion for him elevated because his home state of Texas has the #1 overall pick?
Sure. It's an all-time great emotional fit. Johnny football from Tyler goes to Houston.
Well,
where are you from?
No, Todd. I asked Skip that question.
Oklahoma City.
Todd, I asked Skip that question because I've always preached about box office. That's always important to me. You know, to somebody that, even though the NFL has its fans, somebody that draws guys in.
Yep.
So the fact that Skip was willing to acknowledge that goes a long way for me, Todd, because what I said was whether it was Bortles, whether it was Bridgewater, Carr, or anybody else, there needed to be a distinct difference in terms of talent level, or just a divide. Like if it were Andrew Luck or Manziel, to me it's a no-brainer.
Yep.
You go with Luck.
Agreed.
But what I'm saying is, if it's comparable, if it's debatable as to who should be the #1 overall pick, then I said I would side with Skip, because he's acknowledging that the box office attraction comes into play. But if it's not about the quarterback and we talking about Clowney, I was saying Clowney from day one.
Here's really the crux of it for me. I can tell you right now, Johnny Manziel is capable of coming in the league and sweeping the league by storm. I mean, having an unbelievable rookie season. I also think that at some point you're looking at a guy that's just not going to be able to hold up, and you're going to be dealing with injuries throughout his career. And I think he's capable of being a star when he's on the field, but I think he's also capable of making so many mistakes that he keeps teams in games that they have no business being in. Is that risk worth it for you at #1 overall? Is that risk passing on a Jadeveon Clowney? Is that risk worth it for you? Is that how you want? You're Bill O'Brien. This is your first pick ever. You've got this organization, by the way. It's good enough just about everywhere else. When you compare this team at the other 21 starting positions, they're good enough to be in the playoffs next year. No question, if they've got the right guy under center. Are you willing to take that chance?
I am, because of what he did to the best defense in college football and the best defensive coordinator and mastermind in Nick Saban twice, not once, but twice. And you know what happened in Tuscaloosa 2 years ago, and you know 562 total yards early this year in September against Nick Saban. That's all I need to know. I'm going to take those to the bank. And now I'm going to say, do you realize that from the pocket last year, just from the pocket,
yep,
Johnny Manziel had the best stats in power conference college football. He hit 73% of his passes from the pocket, which was the best among quarterbacks in BCS automatic qualifier conference, okay?
Yep.
So I'm taking that to the bank, because I think he can pick people to pieces from the pocket.
I think
you saw his pro day. You saw what,
much better
and the mechanics were better.
I really like him. And that's the thing. I'm here debating you. At 1 overall, it doesn't make sense to me, because I see other players that you take over him. And there are a lot of guys in the league that agree with you, by the way. But there are a lot of guys in the league that wouldn't touch him with the 10-foot pole.
As Mel says, it's 50-50, and it's really love and hate.
Well, I think there's almost 3, and I've compared it to to the big poker hand. That you're gonna make the decision. Hey, if I go all in on this poker hand, I win it. Great. It's going to set me up for the whole week. It's not even the night, the whole week. If I lose it, I'm going to have to go borrow money from my friend. But most guys are just going to look at it and say, shoot, it's interesting, but I'm just not going to get involved. I want to play tonight. I want to hang around the table tonight.
Okay.
And that's what most guys in the league, that's how they view Johnny Manziel. Is I see the greatness. I see the potential traps. I think I'm going to stay away and go in a different direction. Tim Tebow, I thought you were crazy, and I was very vocal about that. And doesn't matter what happened or what didn't happen. This I get. I truly get this. And if if Houston takes a #1, I'm not going to sit there and rip apart Bill O'Brien, who helped develop Tom Brady and who knows how to work with lower body mechanics and who knows what to do at the quarterback position. I won't have a problem with it. But that's the difference.
Stephen A., hang on 1 second. Since Tebow's name was brought up, all I said going into that draft, I'd take him at the bottom of the first round. He went 25th to Josh McDaniels, and I said if you let him run his college offense, he could win games as a starting quarterback in the NFL. And I think he did. I think that was an all-time miraculous run, but he won a bunch of games.
Where would you take Tim Tebow in this year's draft?
How do you mean? Like if we go right now?
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, he went to New York. We don't have time to get into this, but his confidence got shattered in New York because he thought he was going to get a chance to compete for the job, and he did not. He went to about his 4th quarterback guru after that. He completely he went backward as a passer, I thought, when he got to Belichick. So again, I think he's got a real confidence problem right now. But if we could go back to the Denver quarterback, Heck, I'd take him at the bottom of the first round again if I needed a quarterback.
Welcome back to First Take, everyone. Todd McShay hanging out with us for a little bit longer. Todd, Chip Kelly, big fan of Johnny Manziel. You said you heard of that as well. We all know he went on record saying he broke his heart when he decided not to go to Oregon.
Right.
So what have you heard anything about Chip Kelly, Johnny Manziel, Eagles?
I've heard the rumors, but I don't know that any of them are true or not true. I talked to Chip I think we were at Teddy Bridgewater's pro day, and we were watching the pro day together, and we were just talking about some of the quarterbacks. And he didn't think at the time, like most of us, that any of the top three, Bortles, Manziel, or Bridgewater, would be on the board when they pick at 22, I think it is overall. Yeah, he likes him. He likes him a lot. He recruited him. He wanted him to come. They also had Marcus Mariota in that class, and Johnny wound up deciding to go to Texas A&M. He's a Texas kid, is what he said.
Well, that was a late, he didn't even think he had a chance because Texas didn't want him.
Texas didn't want him, and so Texas A&M, I think, came in and gave him the offer, and Johnny kind of looked at the situation there, and being a Texas guy, wanted to stay in Texas, and it was a great opportunity for him. And as Chip said, I distinctly remember him saying, we really wanted him to stay. We were sad to see him go, but I totally got it, and I was really happy for the kid because he wanted to stay in his home state. That was it. So
I don't think Bill O'Brien is the greatest fit for Johnny or vice versa, but I do think if Chip Kelly could figure out a way to trade up to get Johnny Manziel, it would be a home run for both. They could go places together.
It could be. It would be interesting to see because Chip adjusted his offense very much so this past year, as we all know, but he did it with a quarterback in Nick Foles who doesn't fit hardly anything that he did, from a movement skills standpoint at Oregon. So does he think that in the pro game that you have to have less mobility at quarterback in order to be successful, or did he just adjust it because of the personnel? It may be a combination of both. So it would be interesting to see how that offense would evolve if Manziel gets there. As we talked about last time on here, though, 16 is Dallas. He probably won't get past there. And I hear a lot of, and it could just be rumors, but I hear a lot of noise from St. Louis. And probably not at 2, but if St. Louis trades back, because Atlanta might have to trade up to 2 in order to get Khalil Mack, the linebacker, for Houston and Atlanta to wind up making a deal. So that'll be interesting to watch. But at 13, if Manziel gets there, that would be interesting because St. Louis could look at Manziel and say, you know what? We've got an offensive tackle. We've got a wide receiver at 2. Now we're going to take Manziel. We want to run the football. We want to be physical. We can do that with Manziel, a quarterback. We don't have to throw the ball 40 times with him. And Sam Bradford, we like what we see when he's on the field, but he can't stay healthy. That would be interesting. But I'll say, one last thing. I'll say this. If he gets past Cleveland, there's no other team in the top 10 that I know of in talking to teams that is planning on using their original pick in the top 10. Now, St. Louis could move back, but if he gets past Cleveland at 4, if you see Johnny Manziel on the board at 5, he could very easily get down to 13 if a team doesn't move up to go get him.
Yeah, I will tell you this. If I didn't like Johnny Manziel so much personally, I would actually wish for him to get contaminated by falling down to the Dallas Cowboys so they could grab him.
How much fun would that be, by the way?
I mean, that would be hysterical to me, to be quite honest with you, because Jerry Jones. There's no way that Jerry Jones would pass on Johnny Manziel. I don't care what anybody says. He would take him. But let me ask you this, Todd. Skip Bayless is on the record not only saying that you got to take Johnny Manziel if you're Houston. Skip Bayless is on the record saying that if Bill O'Brien, if he were given the choice more so than Rick Smith, the general manager, if it was up to Bill O'Brien and he were the owner, Skip said, I'd fire Bill O'Brien if he wasn't going to take Johnny Manziel. There's no way. I would pick Johnny Manziel over Bill O'Brien.
Why
and
wouldn't
Todd, I tried to say to him, how in God's name are you going to take a player that's never thrown a pass in the NFL and take him over Bill O'Brien?
Who has never head coached a single down in the NFL.
So let me get
he was an offensive coordinator in the NFL.
Well, but he's never head coached.
Go ahead, Todd.
Let me get this transaction history down. So we're going to hire Bill O'Brien in January?
Yeah.
And then we're going to pass on Manziel at number 1, and then we're going to fire before he hasn't coached a game.
Okay, if I'm the owner,
get rid of him.
If he digs in and he says, hey, I conclude that this kid is too short.
Well,
he's
you're
too
the owner.
reckless.
Why are you concluding anything?
What do you mean? No, if Bill O'Brien concludes, if my new head coach, who still hasn't coached it down as a head coach.
But you gave your head coach a lot of power with personnel decisions.
Exactly.
Okay, but if he doesn't like, this is just me. You're asking me. Okay, I have to finally say, who is more valuable going forward, Bill O'Brien or Johnny Manziel to the Houston Texans? It ain't even close. This kid's 100 times more valuable than this coach is. I can go find another coach. I cannot find another Johnny Football for my team.
They're all hard.
Am I right?
Yeah. They're all
Am I right?
He loves hard.
Oh, you're so far from right that you can't even sniff right now. But I love your passion. I love your passion.
Hey. That's how much.
I mean, you're an owner, and you said, Bill O'Brien, we really want you to come here. And by the way, there's several other organizations that would love to have you. We like you so much, we're going to give you a really good say in what the personnel decisions. And your first personnel decision you make, we don't like, so we're going to fire you.
Okay. But then you see Johnny go somewhere to Cleveland, as you project in your mock, and light up this league, and you'd sit back and say, oh, I kept Bill O'Brien, and I let that kid go to Cleveland.
What else we got going on, Stephen A?
We got nothing else.
I told you something's wrong with him.
All
something's
right.
wrong with him.
We got to get out of there. He loves hard. That's what Stephen A.
He loves hard. Yeah, I'm not mad at that at all.
We leave it there. Thank you so much. You have a busy couple of days coming up. Draft right around the corner. Todd McShay, thank you so much.
Always
After the
fun.
break, folks.
Thanks, Todd.
Final take, ladies and gentlemen, NBA edition. We're talking the playoffs. There are 3 Game 6s tonight. Up first, Raptors return to Brooklyn. Raptors lead the series 3-2. Who wins, Skip?
Stephen A., I'll say the Nets get physical and grind one out. Paul Pierce does play down the stretch, does play big down the stretch. I'll go Nets 95-90.
I'm going Nets 87-80. I think they will clamp down, and Paul Pierce will play late, and they will pull out a victory tonight. I apologize. I'm thinking more like 92-85. Not 87-80, 92-85. 92-85.
Game 6, Spurs Mavs, 8 p.m. tonight. Spurs lead. Skip 2. Who you got?
Stephen A., I picked my Spurs in 6 games in this series, and I'm sticking with it without much conviction, because the tougher the shot that the Dallas Mavericks take, the more likely it's going to go in. Vince Carter is out of his mind, Dirk out of his, Monte out of his, Calderon out of his, and I'll still say my Spurs survive 101-100.
I picked the Spurs to win this series in 6. I'm going to modify that. I think the Dallas Mavericks win Game 6 in Big D. I think Rick Carlisle is just too exceptional. The games have been close. Vince Carter's been playing well. I think the Dallas Mavericks win Game 6 tonight, 103-91, and they force a Game 7.
Oh, now I'll switch my pick to Spurs in 5.
Okay.
How about that?
Why not?
Because he switched to 7.
Do whatever you need to do. The Rockets in Portland for Game 6. Trailblazers lead 3-2. Who takes it, Skip?
Stephen A., I'm going to hang with the Rockets in this one. I'm going to say that because James Harden finally started making some shots down the stretch last game, that he will continue to do so in Portland. And I'll say he and he alone will help the Rockets get it back to a Game 7 in Houston.
Skip, I picked the Houston Rockets to win this series.
You're jumping off.
I believe I was wrong.
No.
I don't have any faith in them winning Game 6 in Portland, because I don't think they're going to shut LaMarcus Aldridge down the way they were able to neutralize him in Game 5. I think Portland wants to avoid a Game 7 desperately, and I think they're able to pull it off. I don't like what I've seen from Houston.
What's the problem?
No.
That's what you don't even want to get
Next
to.
question.
Tomorrow, for the first time in NBA history, there will be 3 Game 7s on the same day. Hawks, Pacers. Who wins?
I got the Hawks, Stephen A., 102-95, because they have won 3 of their last 4 games in Indianapolis. And I think the pressure now shifts completely back on to the shaky home team.
Pacers, 90-85.
Saturday. Oh, I hear you, Kevin. Saturday, OKC, Grizzlies. Who wins Game 7?
This is over. Mike Conley Jr., I'm afraid, is over in this series. Stephen A., I hope I'm wrong about that. I think he'll be a non-factor, if any factor at all. And I think this is a blowout for the home team Thunder, 105-85.
I give Memphis more credit than that. They're tough. I'm picking Oklahoma City to win this game 90-80.
Warriors, Clippers, folks.
I got the Clippers winning this in 7, as I said before the series started, in overtime. So I will say Clippers win in overtime, 115 to 113, thanks to Jamal Crawford.
Go.
No overtime, regulation, but a thriller nonetheless. Clippers 105, Golden State 103.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Well, at least he didn't flip-flop on that one.
He did not flip-flop on that one. Skip's rolling his eyes at you and vice versa. Stephen A's rolling his eyes at you. We're done. Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can catch First Take Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on ESPN2.
The next big thing. The next new kid. The next overnight sensation. The next rookie. One to watch. The next Hall of Famer. The next intimidator. The next 6-time. The next king. Next. Who's next? Let's find out. Names are made here. The History 300 at Charlotte. Saturday at 2:30 Eastern on ABC.